Welcome to a behind-the-scenes look at Corncast editing. So what I want to show is a little bit of my tricks that I use when I edit in Audacity. So what I've done here is I've already preloaded Audacity, and I've loaded up our last, as of this date, November 1st, 2018, I've loaded up our last episode we recorded. And this file that I loaded was Josh and Jordan's file. So I've loaded it as is. This would be, normally I would have two files here, but I'm just going to focus on a single file and the process that I go through right out of the get-go. So first things first, this shows everything. So it's zoomed way out. So I just control and mouse wheel in until I get a much closer view of our sound files and the profile. And one thing I'll do what we do is we record some silence at the beginning so that we get a kind of a check of the room. So you have ambient noise, you have your refrigerator going on in the background, those types of things. We want to get that in its own separate sound profile. And then we do our introduction, and then we do another set of silence, and that set of silence there is for our theme song to go in there. But it also works for us to gather more room noise, cats, those types of things. So let's listen to this, their room in their house. You can kind of hear that whine. Okay, so I listened to that. What I want to do is I want to select that little sampling of their room noise, and I go up here to Effect and Noise Reduction. In noise reduction, I'm going to get that noise profile of their room at that exact moment, and then I'm going to select all of it, and I'm going to repeat that noise reduction, and you can do that by just going all the way back and hitting noise reduction again and hitting OK, or you can hit Control R, and I usually just do the faster method and hit Control R, but just for the sake of this, we're going to repeat that. Okay, so my system estimates that it'll be about 3 minutes for this. I'll go ahead and record the 3 minutes, and I'm going to cut it out. So fast forward through the magic of editing. Okay, as you can see, that part of the noise has been eliminated from all of these flat lines in our wave profile. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a listen. I like to give it a second listen just in case that noise is still present, because any of this little stuff that is happening out here in the background is going to get amplified in the next steps of the process. So let's give it a listen. You can still hear that whine of maybe a laptop, a fan, something in their apartment is making a noise. It could be air conditioning. In my house, my refrigerator will oftentimes go off in the background. So again, I'm going to repeat this same process. I'm going to go up here to Effect. I'm going to gather a different noise profile than the first time because it's been reduced. So I'm going to gather this noise, select all of it, every bit of it, and Control R, and we're going to wait another 3 minutes. Okay, now that is finished for a second time, it's reduced our sound profile even more based off of their background noise. Now, you could do this as many times as you really need to, but at this point, let's give it another quick check, and we should be able to safely say that most of that laptop noise, I think it's a laptop noise, is gone now. Now that that's finished, you can see that the noise profile lines have shrunk even further. So let's give it a listen real quick and see if we hear that laptop noise. And from what I can tell, that laptop noise is now gone. So once that's complete, the next step is to do an equalization. So you go into Effect and you do Equalization. And you can play around with this. For the most part, this is depending on who is talking. Everyone's hertz in their sound profiles are going to be different. Every now and then I play around with this with the guys. Sometimes Jordan sounds a little more tinny than Josh, and so I'll drop down the mids a little bit. Which I'm going to go ahead and do that on this one. So I'll drop down all these values to be just a couple ticks under. I'm going to drop down 1300 hertz as well. Just play around with it and see what works for you, and then hit OK. And that'll take another several minutes sometimes. It just depends. Your mileage is going to vary based off of what machine you're editing on. Okay, now that that has finished, you can always give it a listen for your likeness. If you don't like it, you can hit Control Z and undo it. Just like any other program, you can undo the last thing that you did. So let's give it a real quick listen here.
I've killed 0 so far, actually.
So yeah, I think that's pretty good. I appreciate that their voice is off.
Despite his propensity for running them.
Yeah, see, I think that brings out their voice quite nice. So I'm satisfied with that, so I move on to the next step. So I select everything. Now this specific step doesn't come normally to Audacity. You need to go out to Google, and it's called Spitfish de-esser, and it's the sibilant sound, the sound that an S makes sometimes can be piercing to the ear when you're listening in the car, or, things like that. So I run Spitfish de-esser on every track that has voice. So I'll go ahead and apply this de-esser to the whole track. It probably will take another minute as well. Now that that's finished, I close the de-esser and give it a good quick listen to make sure that nothing has changed.
I've killed 0 so far, actually.
And so when I hear 0 so far, those types of things, I can kind of slightly hear a difference. I'm satisfied. I'm not 100% convinced that the Spitfish de-esser is necessary, but whatever. I select all again, keeping in mind that's what you do, and I work on one track at a time. So keep in mind I would usually have an intro track and my track and their track, and so these are all going on at once. And so if I don't want to hear a track, then I can just mute it out, and then I don't have to worry about it, and I can work on a single track at a time. So again, I selected everything by just clicking over here to the left, went into effect, and this time I'm going to go into compress. These are the values that I have set on my compressor. I literally copied them off of another podcaster on YouTube, and following his videos, I did similar steps. And this is really all you need to do is hit OK if you have these values. Okay, now that that's complete, you'll notice that the compressor takes the really loud, the laughs, the shrill things, and it brings them down. And it takes the really quiet moments and it brings them up. So you'll see now why it was important to take that noise reduction and do it so many times, because those quiet moments are now once again loud. So I like to, at this stage, take another listen to the room noise and the quiet and see if I can reduce that even further. Look, our laptop's back. So we can find that in different spots. That's a different noise profile. So I'll select that and do a noise reduction on it. Get its noise profile and just get it out of everything. Okay, now that that is finished, you'll see that once again we shrunk back down for this area of where there's a laptop fan, or I'm just using laptop fan as an example, but that background noise is what we're trying to reduce here. You'll notice now I've done 3 different noise reductions. They take about 3 minutes on my PC, which is a gaming PC. It's going to take quite a long time to run these, so have your coffee ready and just be ready to do other things and multitask. Also, I'm recording this, so it takes a lot of resources. So now I'm going back to the beginning here, our silence, and I'm going to give it another listen. I might run noise reduction another 1 or 2 times at this point. I'll go ahead and skip past that, but understand you're going to see these silence moments. You want them to be completely flat, which means silence. There's a slight hum there. I'm not too worried about that. This noise I'm a little bit more concerned about. It could be road noise that's going on from the background. So I'm going to go ahead and rerun that one more time. Effect, noise reduction, get noise profile, select the whole track, Control R. And it looks pretty flat to me after that last run. So I can go in here where there once was that, maybe it was road noise, and give it a listen. Seems pretty quiet. Okay, so the last effects-based step that you need to do is, now that you've compressed this, you'll see that the waveforms are all extremely large, and they're extremely large all the way across it if you zoom out. Control mouse wheel zooms in and out. So I zoom back in to where I was at, and I usually like to somewhere in here so that it shows me about 30 seconds. That's usually where I do my editing from. Maybe even a minute. A minute's usually good. Okay, so I see that they're very tall, which means that they're very loud. Here's an example.
I've killed 0 so far, actually.
See how peeking into the reds here? That is something you don't want to have happen for your listeners, because you want them to have a chance to just listen at their own volume levels. So if they want to listen quietly on an airplane, no problem. If they're in their car, you let them control their volume. So you adjust your waveforms so that it allows them to have the control over the volume. To do that, we're going to amplify. And it seems counterintuitive, but you go to Effect and Amplify, and you select a new peak. And what you're going to do is select a negative new peak. -3 is where I like to start. And sometimes I'll repeat this. I'll do a Control R and repeat this action. But we'll start at -3, and that should shrink these noise profiles down. See how that shrunk those noise profiles down? It also shrunk down the silences. I could probably get away with not doing as much noise reduction, but I'm overzealous with it, and I like to try and remove as much background as possible. So I'll give it a listen and see where it peaks at up here in our noise.
I've killed 0 so far, actually.
So for me, I can see that it's pretty good, and I usually like to make sure that I'm right here at the -5 range. I'm going to go ahead and run it one more time. See where that ends us. It might end us up a little too quiet, but if it doesn't, it also might get us out of the yellows. All right, actually, I'm not too bad with this profile. I'm going to go ahead and give it another listen.
I've killed 0 so far, actually.
See, I'm okay with that. I don't mind that. You can play around with it. I probably will leave it right here. I probably will go ahead and do that -3 twice, which I'm not sure if that means that I did a -6. I could, Control Z and check it out, but that's where it stands. So I'm going to leave this video off right here, as this is the very last step as far as effects processing and editing that I would do. There is additional editing steps that I would do, and I'll give you an example of it right here. I know that this section of sound was not the guys speaking, because this is the guys speaking. This is something else. So I'll get into what this is. Well, I can give you a sample of what this is. It's actually me speaking through their headset that's then going back through the mic, and they're recording and picking it up. See, I'll talk about how we're going to get rid of that, or how we're going to manage and merge that up with my sound profile on the next video. Thanks, everyone.